suspicious finances, inappropriate demands, sexual phone calls, unsafe driving, and an inexplicable fear of saran wrap. There are so many strange things you don't know about Queen Elizabeth's children. Prince Charles is known for many things, but you might not realize that he has a keen interest in town planning. In fact, the prince endorsed the creation of a new town called Poundbury, which began construction in 1993 on his land in the Duchy of Cornwall in southwest England. Speaking with 60 Minutes, Charles explained,
"That's what I've been trying to encourage people to think about, to break the conventional mold."
The prince went on to explain, "In the way we've been building and designing during the last century really has all been part of a throwaway society. Combining the ambiance of a quaint English town with modern areas for walking and commuting, Charles tried to manufacture a new way of living with Poundbury. While some have praised the model village, it has also drawn its fair share of criticism. For instance, The Guardian wrote, "The Prince of Wales' traditionalist village in Dorset has long been mocked as a feudal Disneyland." In another article, The Guardian didn't hold back the vitriol, writing, "To visit Poundbury is to be delivered to the furniture floor of a provincial department store in 1954, translated into architecture. It is fake, heartless, authoritarian, and grimly cute." It's also worth noting that Poundbury's architectural design has caused some unforeseen traffic chaos. In 2016, Charles erected a statue of the Queen Mother in the middle of the road, making residents confused about where they should be driving. In 1987, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Prince Andrew, and Sarah, Duchess of York, appeared on the slapstick game show It's a Royal Knockout. Other participants included Hollywood stars like Superman actor Christopher Reeve.
I'm in trouble here. This is not my element.
Even John Travolta put in an appearance. The intention of the ill-conceived spectacle, which was created by Prince Edward, was to raise money for charity. Dressed up in mock Tudor costumes, the royals competed against each other by maneuvering through various quirky obstacle courses. Seeing the Queen's children compete in the silly game show was equal parts confusing and amusing. Despite the strange nature of the program, the royal offspring took their duties as team captains far too seriously, with Andrew demanding a rematch after a round involving gargantuan puppets didn't go exactly as he hoped. At a press conference after filming, Edward asked everyone what they thought, prompting much laughter from the gathered journalists. He thanked them and stormed off.
Thanks.
According to insiders, the Queen lamented her children humiliating themselves on TV and reportedly called the farce a terrible mistake. Despite the apparent embarrassment it caused the royals, the event apparently raised a significant amount of money for charity. Of all the Queen's children, her only daughter is arguably the most unassuming. But it turns out that Anne is anything but a model princess. The first senior member of the royal family to get a criminal record, Princess Anne got into hot water over her troublesome pooch. In 2002, Anne was reportedly out walking her bull terrier Dottie when the dog attacked two children, per the Washington Post. Subsequently, she was fined $785 and the dog was ordered to undergo obedience training. However, many were unhappy with the ruling since such an offense often carries a 6-month jail stint. A year later, another of Anne's terriers, Florence, killed one of Queen Elizabeth's beloved and oldest corgis, according to CBS. The heartbreaking incident reportedly devastated the Queen. However, it was decided that Florence would receive psychological intervention as opposed to being put down, per The Independent. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the end of Anne's canine drama. In 2012, The Express reported that Anne's dogs savaged a stuffed bear gifted by her mom in 1952. The Queen was reportedly enraged when Prince Edward dropped out of the Marines just 4 months after joining. However, her youngest son was intent on pursuing his dreams of stardom. According to The Telegraph, Edward once said, "I love the razzmatazz of show business." To further his dreams, Edward formed Ardent Productions in 1993. Things were reportedly going fairly well for this unusual royal venture until Edward decided to conduct an interview, that is. Unfortunately, the royal had no journalistic experience whatsoever. In 2002, he produced the documentary Edward on Edward about abdicated King Edward VIII's alleged ties to the Nazis during World War II. According to The Guardian, Edward's attempts to interview a subject were nothing short of disastrous, and his lack of experience was apparently glaringly obvious. Producer Christine Carter told The Guardian, "Eventually I had to stop the interview, and I said to Edward and the interviewee, 'What did the Duke of Windsor say to Hitler?' Edward said, 'Chris, you'd better do this interview.' That wasn't Edward's only faux pas in his pursuit of stardom. In 2001, he was accused of invading his nephew Prince William's privacy by inviting camera crews into his campus at St. Andrews University. The fiasco reportedly left William's father, Prince Charles, very angry. When Ardent Productions dissolved in 2009, Edward was reportedly left with a measly £40, which equates to around $50, despite having invested almost $400,000 of his own money into the formation of the company, per The Telegraph. Prince Charles's adoration for his mistress-turned-wife, Camilla Parker Bowles, has always been one of the royal family's worst-kept secrets, but recordings of the couple having relations over the phone is a detail no one expected to find out about. Charles and Camilla were involved in a steamy affair when they were both married to other people. In 1989, when still married to Princess Diana, Charles allegedly decided to rekindle his relationship with his ex-girlfriend Camilla. In one particularly embarrassing chat, a transcript of which was published by People in 1993, Camilla joked that Charles should be reincarnated as her underwear. Instead, the prince fantasized about being a tampon, and it just gets weirder from there, if that's even possible. Dubbed Camilla-gate, the leaking of the conversations was a source of huge embarrassment for the prim and proper prince. As royal author Howard Hodgson wrote in his biography of the Prince of Wales, Charles, the man who will be king, he remains deeply ashamed of the embarrassment that he caused his mother, deeply sorry for the pain it caused both his and Camilla's children. When Princess Anne appeared to rebuff Donald Trump's handshake, many saw it as a personal attack. At the event, Trump was seen talking to the Queen, Prince Charles, and Camilla Parker Bowles. The Queen then gestured towards her only daughter, who waited in the corridor. Anne appeared to turn down the opportunity to exchange pleasantries with the then-president. However, royal journalist Valentine Lowe took to Twitter to share the lowdown on Anne's behavior. As it turns out, Anne was apparently telling the Queen that there were no other world leaders to greet after Trump, rather than turning down an invitation herself. Aside from Trump, the truth is, Anne reportedly doesn't enjoy shaking anyone's hand. In the documentary Queen of the World, Anne explained that shaking hands was unheard of for her royal forebears, saying, "I think the initial concept was that it was patently absurd to start shaking hands, and it seems to me that it's become a shaking hands exercise rather than a walkabout."
I mean, we never shook hands. The theory was that you couldn't shake hands with everybody.
The Queen may enjoy shaking hands with everybody, exhibiting all the social graces required to fulfill her duties, but her daughter cares little about adhering to social conventions foisted upon her. It would seem that Prince Andrew isn't a fan of his daily commute. As the Express reported in 2016, Andrew apparently got into trouble when he drove into the closed gates of Windsor Great Park with his Range Rover, supposedly to save on traveling one extra mile. The incident caused a hefty amount of damage to both the park gate and the royals' swanky car. Speaking with The Sun, a startled park employee said, "The gate stops deer roaming, and the prince uses it as a shortcut. For some reason, the sensors didn't work. Instead of going a mile out of his way, he just decided to ram it open." Onlookers reportedly expressed their dismay at the prince's brazen disregard for safety and public property, and the incident led to campaigners calling for Andrew to be prosecuted. However, the police opted not to pursue Andrew, causing a huge outcry from locals. In addition to his environmental activism, it might surprise some that Prince Charles is a vocal proponent of the controversial use of homeopathy for serious illnesses. In 2004, The Guardian reported that Charles allegedly supported so-called coffee cures for cancer. Speaking at a healthcare conference, the Prince of Wales championed the highly contentious Gerson therapy, which entails heavy fruit consumption and coffee enemas, claiming that he knew of a girl whose terminal cancer was cured by the controversial treatment.
Patients should be able to gain the benefit of the best of both worlds.
The prince faced a hefty backlash following the claims, with oncologists expressing concern that seriously ill patients may give up their cancer treatment in favor of alternative medicine at the prince's recommendation. Charles's support for alternative medicine culminated in the publishing of 2 homeopathy guides by the prince and his Foundation for Integrated Health. This led to widespread criticism from the scientific community, who condemned his misleading and inaccurate claims, according to the Times. However, the royal has been unrelenting in his support of alternative medicine, lobbying for homeopathy to be available on the National Health Service, the UK's taxpayer-funded provider of universal healthcare. If you've ever wondered what a meal fit for a royal might look like, you're in for a shock. For instance, it seems that Prince Edward's meal of choice is the Balmoral buddy. In case you didn't know, a buddy is the colloquial term for sandwich in the UK. The Queen's son is particularly partial to this item of food, as the Sunday Post reported. Edward adores Balmoral buddies, a roll filled with barbecued beef or fish. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew apparently loves another quintessentially English dish, that being a meat and potato pie, according to Express. He may be a lavish spender, but Andrew apparently favors the cheap stuff, opting to grab $1 savory pies from the grocery store. It is Princess Anne, however, who wins for having the most noteworthy meal choice. Queen Elizabeth's only daughter reportedly loves nothing more than munching on rotten bananas. Former royal chef Darren McGrady told Today, Princess Anne almost always preferred the bananas almost black, overripe, because they digest easier. As for Charles, he reportedly never eats lunch. In fact, he barely eats breakfast, opting for a hearty dinner at the end of the day. One of the prince's advisors told the Daily Mail, "When we do day visits or foreign tours, he can go the whole day without stopping for a break, which means we all have to miss our lunch as well." On the rare occasion he doesn't forego lunch, Charles allegedly eats one boiled egg, according to Town & Country. It was the spring of 1974, and a 23-year-old Princess Anne would endure an ordeal she would never forget when a man named Ian Ball pulled a gun on a car that was transporting the royal. He reportedly intended to hold Anne for ransom, as the Smithsonian Mag reported. Ball had rented a car under the name of John Williams, in which police would later find 2 pairs of handcuffs, Valium tranquilizers, and a ransom letter addressed to the Queen. Although several people were shot during the shocking attack, all of them survived. The would-be kidnapper was later sentenced to life in a psychiatric facility. In an interview with Michael Parkinson, the princess later recalled the horrific incident with good humor, saying, "We had a fairly low-key discussion about the fact that I wasn't going to go anywhere, and wouldn't it be much better if we just went away and we all forget about it?" The witty royal went on to recall that she almost lost her cool over a wardrobe malfunction that occurred in the middle of the mayhem, saying, "The back of my dress split, and that was his most dangerous moment."
I lost my rag at that state house.
Regardless of social status, irrational fears are a lived experience. In the case of Prince Charles, his aristocratic status is central to his unusual fear. Due to being served hand and foot from day one, it's understandable that Charles was unfamiliar with everyday culinary aids. For instance, according to reports, Charles was absolutely terrified the first time he saw saran wrap, or cling film as it's known across the pond. In the book Rebel Prince by Tom Bower, the author details a strange instance in which Charles supposedly saw the plastic wrap for the first time. As Bower explained, he walked into the dining room and shrieked. Fearing the worst, Camilla dashed in after him. "What's this?" asked her husband, pointing at the food. "It's cling film, darling," she replied. In addition to his strange aversion to kitchen equipment, Charles reportedly has numerous other quirks. The documentary, Serving the Royals Inside the Firm, sees former royal butler Paul Burrell suggest that Charles's odd habits include having his shoelaces ironed and making his staff prepare his toothbrush, Burrell alleged. "On one occasion, he rang me from his library and he said, 'Oh, Paul, a letter from the Queen seems to have fallen into my wastepaper bin. Would you pick it out?'" However, whether or not Burrell's version of events actually happened is unclear. Prince Charles is known to be a snazzy dresser, but onlookers will find it hard to keep up with the royals' various impressive ensembles. As The Guardian noted, insiders have said Charles changes his outfits as often as 5 times a day. In 2002, the outlet reported that Charles had not only been overspending public money, but he apparently didn't look after his fancy new threads as well as he should have. Per The Guardian, the discarded outfits, including £2,000 bespoke suits, are left strewn across the floor for one of the valets to pick up. It is then their job to make sure the clothes are washed and returned to the correct place in his mahogany wardrobes. This wouldn't be the last we would hear of Charles's bizarre habits either. Royal biographer Brian Hoey penned the book Not in Front of the Corgis: Secrets of Life Behind the Royal Curtains, further detailing Charles's particular requests. Among the claims are that the prince orders his staff to hand wash all of his clothing, banning them from using a washing machine. He also reportedly asks his staff to pick out exactly what he will wear each day. As the Express noted, Charles has allegedly been nicknamed the Pampered Prince as a result. Charles has since seemingly attempted to make amends for his allegedly wasteful ways by supporting ethically made fashion, and he even released a sustainable fashion line in 2020. Prince Andrew's alleged behavior has been the subject of many news reports. While his association with pedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein has been well documented, Andrew's allegedly shady past has more layers than many royal fans realize. As a former royal aide alleged to The Sun, he's been incredibly rude to his personal protection officers, literally throwing things on the ground and demanding that they pick them up. No social graces at all. Author Ingrid Seward has even claimed that Andrew was a royal pain from a young age. In an exposé for the Daily Mail, Seward alleges the coachmen and grooms who worked there had little time for the small prince, having often seen him taunting the guardsmen on duty and aiming sly kicks at the dogs. Sensing their studied indifference, Andrew started beating the ground with a large stick. He also reportedly swiped at the royal horses with sticks. Plus, there are further rumors of Andrew's supposed callousness. Former royal maid Charlotte Briggs claimed that the prince thought it was hilarious when his dog bit her. Speaking with The Sun, Briggs said, "My leg was bleeding and my tights ripped. They just laughed. He wasn't bothered. Even when I was limping and my leg was purple, he never apologized. It's those little things that tell a lot about people and their character." All of this strange behavior has led to some dubbing Andrew the black sheep of the royal family. According to Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story, in her own words, Princess Diana allegedly felt uneasy around Prince Andrew. While Prince Andrew appears to have enjoyed somewhat of a billionaire playboy's lifestyle, his annual salary is $338,000, according to the New York Times. So how exactly does Prince Andrew sustain a life of luxury? As reported by The Sun, Andrew's lavish expenditure reportedly includes frequent fancy vacations across the globe, a Bentley worth almost $300,000, a Rolex collection worth several $100,000, and a $22.4 million ski chalet. Author David McClure told The Sun, "The answers behind Andrew's sources of wealth are shrouded in mystery. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the wealthy people he met, such as Jeffrey Epstein, gave him useful financial advice."
What is an extravagant lifestyle?
Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, did tell the Evening Standard that she received cash from Epstein to pay off a lingering debt. Meanwhile, the Daily Mail alleges that Andrew's ties to wealthy financier David Rowland may help to explain his billionaire high life. According to the outlet, Andrew was allegedly involved in shady dealings with Rowland's offshore tax-dodging fund. In 2022, Andrew settled his lawsuit with Virginia Giuffre, who has long maintained that the prince sexually assaulted her when she was 17.
He knows exactly what he's done, and I hope he comes clean about it.
The large financial settlement raised major questions regarding Andrew's wealth. The Washington Post speculates that Andrew, who was denied the allegations, likely paid Giuffre a figure in the tens of millions, far exceeding his annual salary. As a result, it's been suggested by multiple outlets that the Queen may have chipped in on Andrew's settlement. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE-4673.